Pennsylvania is a battleground state that did flip in President Trump's favour in 2016. Do you think that there is renewed optimism in that state?
Well, I think the Democrats certainly aren't going to take it for granted like they feel they did in 2016. Vice President Biden visited Kenosha, Wisconsin yesterday, and it was a stark contrast to the visit that the president had the day before, or a couple of days before, in which the president appeared before the destruction of the riots from the protests, and the vice president appeared in a church talking about the original sin of slavery and the need to address it. The president did not speak to or meet with the Blake family, but Vice President Biden did and spoke to Jacob Blake himself on the phone from his hospital room. So they were just completely contrasting images, and it really depicts the direction these two campaigns will be taking and the two different approaches. The president is underlying his law and order campaign strategy. He feels that's a winning ticket for him. The scare tactics of what he claims a Biden administration would look like on the streets of America, he feels is working for him. That remains to be seen in the polls, though.
It was interesting, Joe Biden's visit to Kenosha. What do you think, what is Joe Biden promising, do you think, to make his supporters believe that he is the one to create change on the matter? You know, we've seen so much violence, so many protests, but what do you believe his supporters will feel about this?
It's a difficult task ahead for him, and he certainly needed to go and do this. I think a lot of Democrats in the party were concerned that he needed to be more forceful about what was happening on the streets in America. He made a very forceful anti-Trump speech in Pennsylvania a day or two before he went to Wisconsin. And he's trying to appeal to the complexity of the issue. The issue isn't just about making sure the streets are safe. The issue is about police brutality and calls for addressing racial injustice. So he's trying to do that at the same time, supporting police and trying to fight back against the president's claims that the Democrats will defund the police. So, he's trying to do what a president really needs to be doing, and that's addressing everyone's issues that are affecting this campaign. And of course, the president is trying to take the attention away from what's happening with the pandemic, where a lot more people are dying and are getting sick, as well as the shattered economy. So they're not really good political platforms for him at the moment.
Kim, the last few weeks, of course, we've had the Democratic and the Republican conventions. Has there been any change to either leader in terms of polling?
Well, neither of them seem to get too much of a bounce from the conventions. The polls are showing a little bit for the Democrats. But, these conventions, they're a week of a bit of a bounce. Sometimes they can be helpful going into the general election campaign season, which traditionally starts after Labor Day, which is, late this week. But, it's a long way to go. Right now, the polls are all showing Biden ahead, and critically in some of the key swing states, he's 4 points ahead. So, the president really needs to widen his base, and his law and order platform is definitely speaking to his base and is energizing his base. But whether it's going to widen his base remains to be seen. And in order for him to win, he needs to widen that base and address other issues besides that.
Donald Trump has also insisted that he has not recently been hospitalised for mini strokes. Now, he appears to have been quite increasingly focused on this story in recent days. Why do you think it's only just surfaced now? What's the strategy behind this?
Yes, it's interesting. The president's a couple of times now addressed his health. I mean, we saw a few weeks ago him defending himself about reports of his shuffling down the ramp at a graduation ceremony, and not being able to lift his arm very high. But he spent a lot of time explaining why that happened, because he had shaken so many hands that he couldn't raise his arm as high as he wanted to. And in this instance, it's come out because of a book that's come out, and a report on that book, a news report, stated that the vice president had been alerted to be available in case the president underwent anesthesia while he was at Walter Reed Hospital back in November. Now, that's the first we'd heard of that. Having worked in the White House myself, and Ronald Reagan having had an assassination attempt, having had hospitalization and subsequent physicals, we were very careful to make sure that the media were aware when he was having appointments, what was taking place, and giving information about the results.
Yeah.
The problem with the November one that President Trump went to, there was no alert. There were no explanations as to why the sudden arrival on a Saturday. Normally, these things are planned well in advance. So the suddenness of it is what's making people question why it occurred.